Hey guys, Joe Saint here, coming at you with my partner, Frankensleeve, and this one is going to be about the weekend of 1,000 NSVs. Yep, I had NSVs coming out the wazoo over the course of a 3-day long weekend. It was a first in many ways. This was my first 3-day weekend, to actually kind of like a mini vacation. It was a first as far as a 3-day weekend with my girlfriend. It was my first long distance drive with my girlfriend. I had my first flight in a small plane. That plane was about the size of a pack of gum. I think it has a rubber band as part of the engine. I asked the pilot, if we lost the engine, how far would we fly? He said, well, we'll probably fly all the way to the scene of the crash. And I bet we beat the paramedics there by at least 30 minutes. This was my first trip to a party city, New Orleans. This was my first time to do multiple days of long walking, 6+ hours each day. This is my first time to go to a fancy reservations only sit-down type restaurant. We visited 3 really nice restaurants, 2 in New Orleans and 1 in, actually I've forgotten which city it was. It was a city between Texas and New Orleans. It was in Louisiana, but we visited Irenes Cuisine in New Orleans. They're down there in the French Quarter. We visited the Court of Two Sisters, which is also in the French Quarter, and we stopped off for a visit with my girlfriend's sister and brother-in-law, and we got a chance to go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Very nice steakhouse and restaurant. It's a very nice restaurant. It serves steak, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. And it was my very first time to meet a pair of true entrepreneurs, and that would be my girlfriend's sister and brother. They have built a business up from scratch, and were able to leave their cushy, or not cushy, but comfortable corporate careers, and were able to build a very successful business out of their home. They were a great couple of people, and I wish we lived closer so I could visit them more often. So this video is all about proof that you can live after weight loss surgery. And some of the main questions that you might want to ask yourself if you're considering weight loss surgery or losing weight in general: would you give up your current life for the life you dream of? Would you give up your current life to find your soulmate? Would you give up your current life to do all the fun things that you're missing out on? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get those things? And my story was about 30 months ago. I only dreamed of finding my better half, going on weekend getaways, and having fun that I consider most people have. And going away for a 3-day weekend was something I only really had known about from chick flicks and TV programs. I had never really expected to do it myself. So my life is actually picking up, and I'm living after weight loss surgery. And really it boils down to moderation and choices. During my trip, we did all the touristy things in the French Quarter, like we stopped at Pateau's, and I had a hurricane, and then we stopped at another place, had a beer, stopped at a place called Tropical Isle and had their signature drink called a grenade, and we did a wine tasting on one of the days. I ate good food. We stopped at one of the famous cafes that's known for the beignets, and had some beignets, which are like a little fried piece of the dough covered with about 10 tons of powdered sugar. We ate at really fine restaurants at least twice. Stopped at one place that was famous for its hamburgers, and I had a half a hamburger. My girlfriend had the other half. As a matter of fact, she cut the hamburger in half and kept the bigger half. I thought the rule was whoever cut it in half, the other person got to pick which half they wanted. Not in this case. She did eminent domain and confiscated half my hamburger. We had breakfast at both the bed and breakfast we stayed at and a couple other places in town. So, and we walked, and we walked, and we walked for Saturday and Sunday. We walked probably 5 to 7 hours each day. Some of the things you might like to know about New Orleans before you get there: it's very, very, very crowded in the French Quarter. It's very noisy. There's lots and lots of panhandlers, and there's lots of great architecture and interesting shops to see. If you love people watching, you'll see all kinds of people. And like I said, there's lots of crowds. The party goes on 24/7. It can be very expensive to live there, and I'll show you an example in one of these parts of the 3-part videos I'm going to post. It's very noisy, so I don't see how someone can live in the French Quarter in those apartments and get any sleep unless they sleep during the daytime and work at night. It's almost impossible to drive in the French Quarter because of all the foot traffic and people walking back and forth in the streets. There are just so many people that it's very difficult to drive around. So my girlfriend had a great idea about parking or getting our bed and breakfast outside the French Quarter, which turned out to be like 3/4 of a mile from the French Quarter, and we just parked up there and walked into the French Quarter each day. And it turned out the bed and breakfast was a whole lot less expensive than staying in a hotel. And I thought it was a whole lot nicer. I'd never stayed in a bed and breakfast before, but it was a very nice house that had been redone and had lots and lots of architecture, artwork on the walls, and New Orleans information, and they were really, really nice people. They took care of us. So that's about all for the intro. Let me wrap this up and get on with narrating. This is day 1 of our trip to New Orleans. After a 5-hour drive over to the French Quarter, we stopped at this little bed and breakfast called the Elysian Fields Inn. And I would suggest, if you're going to go to New Orleans, that you book your trip several weeks in advance, at least 2 weeks, preferably 3 weeks before you head out, because this place, the French Quarter, stays busy year-round. And if you're going to Mardi Gras, you might won't even look at much further out, say 6 months. But we booked this little place called the Elysian Fields Inn, a little bed and breakfast. It worked out really well because it is just outside the French Quarter, about a 15-minute walk from Bourbon Street. And I tell you, I'm glad we stayed there rather than trying to drive into the French Quarter and stay at a hotel in that area. It turned out to be actually easier to get back and forth and considerably less expensive than staying in a hotel room. But if you do plan on staying in the French Quarter, be prepared to just park up your car and just walk everywhere, because traffic is murder because of all the pedestrians everywhere. But as you can see, it's a really pretty neighborhood. Lots of really old oak trees. The outside of the building is really pretty. It's a converted house. And this little tour of the inside, the couple had a really nice dog, friendliest little dog. This is the view of what it looks like when you're headed in towards the kitchen. That bottom photograph is what it looks like as you're walking in. The top photograph is looking back at the front doors as you're going out, and another long hallway shot looking towards the kitchen area. And this bottom one is the stairs going up to our rooms. If you've got lots of luggage, I would suggest getting a first floor room, because it was a bugger carrying all the luggage up there. This is the little shot of the kitchen area. You can see they had a modern day antique looking stove. It was really pretty. They kept the refrigerator in there. You could store your cold drinks if you wanted to, and lots of dishes and plates. They had a lot of just handy items in case you wanted to keep your own food nearby, because there wasn't any place to keep it in the rooms. And a little tour of the dining room area where we had breakfast every morning. They served breakfast each day. Each day was something different. And you see it's a really nice, pretty, cozy area. They had a little bulletin board area where you could see what was going on, and a lot of the tourist maps and pamphlets. And the owners were a really good source of information about what to see, what to do, where the best places were. One of the first places I wanted to go was to a hamburger shop. I wanted a hamburger first day, and had that nice little hot tea area right here with, I don't know, like 16 kinds of tea, sitting on a really pretty antique dresser, and just a little tour of the sitting area and the couches. They had a little nook over here in the corner so you could connect to the internet and print out wirelessly from your phone to their printer. Their place is just covered, every square inch is covered with artwork and antiques. They had a large selection of DVDs and movies, VHS movies, because you could watch them in your room. They had a DVD, VHS player in each room, and just some more artwork, just from all the local artists. I mean, I was just blown away by how pretty everything was. And if you love hardwood floors, you really like this place. Genuine hardwood floors, and I don't know what else to say about it except it was a really nice place to stay. And this is the trek up the stairs to my room. I want to give you a little tour of the upstairs. And like I said, if you're carrying luggage, this thing was very steep, very narrow, and it was a hassle bringing all of your luggage up. So you might want to consider a first floor room if you do a bed and breakfast. So there's my room, and I'm going to turn down the hallway here and show you a little bit of the second floor. And on into the room here, we had a room that was just a queen-size bed with its own bathroom. There were other rooms that had sitting areas which were a little bit larger. That's our wardrobe right there, because the room has no closets, so they give us a wardrobe to hang our clothing in. And this other wardrobe is actually where the TV and the DVD VCR are housed. And you see our junk piled up in the corner, or my junk piled up in the corner. And a little tour of the bathroom. It was a really pretty bathroom with stone tiled walls, and had a jacuzzi bathtub, all the modern amenities. It was much nicer than I was expecting, because I was really expecting an older house and older fixtures. And our first stop was to the Clover Grill. You can see it's a little teeny tiny restaurant. Probably it only had like 4 tables in it and 10 bar stools. I mean, this place was the size of a pack of gum. There's the doors to the front of it, and the outside. It was kind of confusing because one of the cooks was wearing a shirt that said Clover Grill on the back, but then it said Clever Girl on the front, and I kept looking back and forth trying to figure out, are my eyes playing tricks on me? But they served really, really good hamburgers, and I ordered a hamburger. My girlfriend ordered nothing, and that spelled trouble right away. I knew that was not a good sign. That means she was going to be eating half my hamburger, which was not a bad thing. But the problem was the cook gave her my hamburger, and she cut it in half, and she kept the better half. It's like that old song, she got the gold man, I got the shaft. They said the judge split it all down the middle and gave her the better half. Well, she got the better half. She ordered onion rings and no hamburger, and took half my hamburger and gave me 4 or 5 of her over-fried onion rings. But it was a very good hamburger. They cook it under they call it a genuine hubcap. It's just an aluminum hubcap. I guess that makes it special. And they squirt water under the hubcap to lock in, to cause steam and I guess keep the hamburger juicier. But it was a very, very good hamburger. And our next little jaunt down the road was to Bourbon Street. This little section here. I may I may be silent and turn the audio up so you can hear just how loud it is during the daytime. But we were actually across the street from these bars, and it was so loud I wanted to put my hands over my ears. I don't see how anybody can sit in those bars and listen to live music or the jukebox. It's just incredibly, incredibly loud. And this was another one of my firsts to be accosted by a panhandler on Bourbon Street. A guy walked up behind me, and he noticed that my wallet was poking out of my back pocket and suggested that I, put my wallet in my front pocket, because there are pickpockets in New Orleans that they will bump up against you, and you'll feel the bump, and they'll grab your wallet. You won't notice your wallet's gone. So that was kind of him to tell me, give me that tip. So I swapped my wallet to my front pocket, and I thought that was the end of it. But he started to walk away, and it wasn't 10 seconds later, he's back tapping me on the shoulder, asking me for $1. So it was worth $1 to get that tip. He may have saved me quite a bit of money and a lot of hassle if I'd actually lost my wallet. But don't ever think anyone who approaches you in New Orleans is doing out of kindness. They most likely want something from you. So just take it for what it's worth. And my girlfriend got really angry with me for giving him $1. But as you can see, that's her backpack in front of the camera, on and off that little white and black backpack. That is the view I had most of the trip. I mean, most of the walking in New Orleans, because she set a pretty good pace, and I had a hard time keeping up with her. She wanted to show me the best of New Orleans and all the things you're supposed to see and do, and that's exactly what she did. But it was a lot of walking, and she had the map. And our next stop off was at Pat O's for their famous hurricane. It's basically a rum punch, and a little bit of video from around the courtyard where we sat and drank that hurricane. It knocked me on my butt really, really quick. And it seems like everybody is in the mood for love in New Orleans, because we had these two birds jumping from limb to limb on the tree behind us, and they weren't fighting, is all I gotta say. I'm pretty sure it was a male bird that wouldn't leave a female bird alone. And our next stop was the Hustler store. No visit is complete without the Hustler store. Their motto out front, their logo says, "Relax, it's just sex." And this thing is just what you would think the Hustler store is all about. It's just lined top to bottom with adult toys. And as you can see, they just have stuff from floor to ceiling. And the ceiling's lined with the Hustler covers. Our next stop on the tour was Madame LeBeau's Voodoo Shop. They don't allow you to take photographs inside the Voodoo Shop. And even though it looks very big on the outside, this place is teeny tiny on the inside. But it is stocked floor to ceiling with all kinds of voodoo items, charms, spells, books. And our next stop off was to hike on down to Jackson Square. It's a beautiful, beautiful park with a Catholic church off to one side. After our little tour through the church and the park, or Jackson Square, we headed over for a beer at the American Sports Saloon. And you can take a look at the doormat there and pick up the letters for the initials of the saloon. And we just stopped off there for a beer. We were trying to kill some time before we needed to head down to our reservations at the restaurant that evening. And we stopped off, had a beer called Indian Pale Ale. And this last stop is for Irenes Cuisine. It's a very, very stylish sit-down suit and tie type of restaurant, although you don't have to wear a suit and tie. But I'm glad we made reservations, because that place is tiny inside. There probably isn't 20 tables inside. All the restaurants in New Orleans and businesses, they're all so tiny and cramped. But it reminded me something out of like I would have saw in The Godfather. The ceilings are low, the tables have candles, the lighting is low. They had a guy playing the piano in the background. This is what I had, the lasagna. My girlfriend had a fish dish. It was the fish of the day. It was a drum, either baked or broiled. It was both dishes were very good. I preferred my lasagna over fish. But I thought it was kind of funny. We ordered a soup, a cream of something soup, and the waiter made this big deal about it had whole lump crab meat in the soup, and he emphasized that the lump crab meat was dropped into the soup as it was arriving at your table. When it got there, I didn't see the guy drop the crab meat into the soup, so I was like, I missed out on something. Said, hey, he made a big deal about this. Well, how come I didn't get to because a different waiter brought it to us, and he didn't let us see him dropping in the lump of crab meat. And Literally, it took a little bit to find the lump because there was only one lump, and literally, the lump was smaller than the tip of my finger right here. So I'm like, why does this guy make such a big deal about the lump crab meat in this soup? Because it was such a huge letdown. And one of the things my girlfriend wanted me to experience was Bananas Foster. I'd heard about Bananas Foster before. If you haven't eaten it before, it's all about the presentation. They cook up bananas in liqueur and set it on fire, and then after they've deglazed the pan, they pour it over vanilla ice cream. And my girlfriend really had her heart set on having some Bananas Foster. Unfortunately, Irenes Cuisine didn't offer it. Their ceilings are very low, and a flaming dish like Bananas Foster is a real fire hazard in a place like that, being cramped and low ceilinged. I can see why they don't offer it. So we had to set off on a trek. It took us, I believe, 3 different restaurants to find a place that did offer Bananas Foster, and they had like 10-foot ceilings. It was called the Court of the Two Sisters, and they were well known for their Bananas Foster. The waiter came out and did his presentation. Here's a little film of him doing the Bananas Foster. I've cut out a little bit of it because to me it took too long. The film runs too long. It's kind of boring if you watch too much of it. But basically, they put bananas into this big dish over an open flame, add some sugar to it, butter to it, and then for the final presentation they add brandy to it, and then set the brandy on fire to deglaze the pan. And you can see he's about to throw the brandy into the pan there and set it on fire, and as soon as the brandy alcohol burns off, he pours it over the vanilla ice cream. It's a very nice dish. It's also a very, very calorie-laden dish, so I probably didn't eat 3-4 bites of it total because after eating at Irenes and eating all that lasagna, I was a little bit worried about how many calories I was taking in. So, as I said before, it's all about choices and moderation. So after that pretty much wrapped up the day. It was around 9 o'clock at night. We were both pretty exhausted and tired. My feet were hurting pretty good. I was limping pretty bad, so we limped on back to the bed and breakfast and crashed out for the night. And we were up and going the next morning around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and headed out again. So you'll see that day 2 in part 2 of this video, so keep an eye out for it. And this is Joe Saint, along with my sidekick, Frankensleeve, and we'll be coming back at you with part 2. Keep pimping that sleeve.